What's happening, people? What's happening, folks? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video with your boy CJ from the Gunner's Corner. And we are reacting to well, a bit of a postseason reaction. Post Champions League final reaction. I am actually back from London. Went to London, England, just last week. Actually, got back yesterday. I arrived down there before the Champions League final midweek, and came back yesterday. Yesterday being Thursday. What would the day have been? Thursday, June 4th, to give you guys a bit of context. I've been there for about a week, and yeah, what a time it was. Where do I start? I mean, first of all, there's going to be a lot of post-season reaction, post-trip reaction. I do plan on putting out a vlog on the channel that you guys will be able to see and be able to look at just to get the whole experience of the London trip. Whether that's the Champions League final match day stuff, whether that's the parade stuff the following day for the Premier League title parade, and just the whole experience in London generally, our time down there. Love London for more than one reason. Obviously, the Arsenal being the main reason, but I have family there as well. It's a beautiful city, similar to where I'm from here in Toronto. So, just a beautiful overall experience. And speaking of fans traveling in from all over the world, right? Arsenal fans from my side in Toronto, from Africa, from Asia, from the USA, right, America, and then obviously within Europe, people traveling from other countries within Europe to go to London, England for the Arsenal parade on the Sunday. Just goes to show first and foremost how massive of a football club Arsenal is and the sleeping giant that we've been. This club is a massive club as everybody has been able to see now, right? You see it, the numbers that turned out for the parade, 1.5 million. Just a massive show of support for what is, one of the biggest football clubs in the world that's just been starving of the success at the elite level for years now, for one reason or another that we may know about or you may not know about, but we can go into those details on another time, another video, but it's been all been discussed throughout the last 20 years, 20 odd years that we haven't been lifting the major honors and lifting the Premier League this season is a big step in the right direction to bringing us back to where we need to be. We are well and truly back. We've been saying that we're on the brink of being back now for a few years. We've been title challenging, but now you get that major trophy over the line, the one that you haven't won in 22 years, the Premier League. It's safe to say that we are back now, fully and officially. Arsenal Football Club has been a sleeping giant for so long, and again, you see the turnout, the support, the night that we won the league at the Emirates. Um, you know, the, I think it was a Tuesday night at the Emirates. We won the league after City dropped points to Bournemouth. The Sunday we lifted the Premier League after that win against Crystal Palace on the final day of the Premier League season. That night, the streets of London were also flooded and busy and crowded as well. Um, and then obviously, yeah, the parade that happened last Sunday. We're a sleeping giant that's been woken up, and hopefully it's a step in the right direction now for Arsenal Football Club to continue to challenge, to be ambitious, to go on and continue to win major honors and get the big one now over the line. The elephant in the room, the one with the big ears, the trophy with the big ears, which is the Champions League crown. Now that was probably the only, you know, downside in what has been a magnificent 2 weeks or so, 3 weeks since we won the Premier League. The energy, the buzz, it's been a party vibe, a party atmosphere. The Champions League was that one downer, right? That let's not beat around the bush. Let's be honest. And you know, again, we're going to talk about that experience and what the overall experience of London was like, which includes the Champions League final day, match day stuff in London, and where how Finsbury Park was crazy and how the city was wild, just trying to find somewhere to watch the game. We'll talk about all that stuff at a different time, but right here, right now, just quickly, I want to go over that Champions League and that specific experience and the game itself. We are going to touch on it in another general podcast with Merdad and Laurent that's coming out shortly. But yeah, just me and my perspective of that final, having watched it down there in London and the expectation of us coming back out of that game as champions of Europe. We obviously fell short on the day. That's no secret now. We all know that. Ladies and gentlemen, before I, again, get into it as well, just like and subscribe, hype up the video. It really, really does help us out. Again, coming back from London, we've taken a break, not a break, but there hasn't been content out on the channel for about a few days now. Again, that's with us being away. Murdad was also away in London as well. But now that we're back, trust me, the content's gonna ramp back up because there's gonna be so much videos and vlogs from the trip. I'm sure you've seen short clips that are on the channel now already, the short clips of the parade and whatnot. So yeah, now that we're back, you're gonna see a lot more stuff coming out. And stay tuned for the vlog. So yeah, you'll get to feel the experience. But yeah, that Champions League final. Wow. First of all, a privilege it is to see Arsenal back in the Champions League final. It was 2006 the last time we were there, which is 20 years ago. I was a young boy watching, Henri and the gang, Henri Campbell, young Fabregas, these guys play. And again, when you think of the size and the stature and the fan base and the prestige and the trophies of this, historic football club, 20 years later, it took too long to get back into the Champions League final. But we're back here now, and again, we fell short. So we still don't have that star above the badge. We still don't have that crown to our name. It's a curse, and we saw it with City, right? We saw it with City for the longest time. They all the money that was pumped into the club, Pep Guardiola coming in, world-class players coming in, coming out. Obviously, the 115 hanging over them that, is also a discussion for another day. But they were meant to get that Champions League now after all the success they had domestically, finally getting their first Premier League crown in 2012, I think it was. The next step in evolution for them was to go on and get that Champions League after, you know, multiple domestic trophies in the last few years. That Champions League was the one that they've been missing and craving. Pep Guardiola came in to do the business and he did it. And they finally got it in 2023, I believe it was. So we saw how desperate they were for it, how long they tried for it. They had lost the final previously to Chelsea in 2021 before finally being victorious in the Champions League. So it took them quite a few tries to get it done once they, finally became a big club, quote unquote, after the money came through. But for us, yeah, the size of Arsenal Football Club, our history stretches longer than Man City's, and we've done things, the right way, as you'd like to say and like to think on the pitch, without any 115 or alleged breaches of, you know, any footballing guidelines. We'd like to think that we go about things the right way. And again, maybe, that has been to the detriment of some success. We've seen Chelsea with, charges and, illegal breaches hanging over them for the number of years for, all the trophies success that they've had. Has it come in an illegal way? Has it come in a suspect and suspicious way under Roman Abramovich and so on and so forth? So that's how they built a lot of their success as well as Chelsea and Man City, right? Allegedly, with all these breaches, with all these charges to their names, they got these trophies, let's say by any means necessary, right? Even if it means, and it meant, tweaking the rules a little bit. But we've always liked to go about things the right way, right? As Arsenal Football Club, and we've built what we've built through sheer class, you know. Always been known as a very classy club, and again, but the one thing that we have not done yet is get that Champions League over the line, and maybe going about it the way we've done it, trying going about things the right way, and then the transfer from the Highbury to the Emirates, it's cost us success on the pitch for a number of years now. And again, a club of our size and stature we should have Champions League in our back pocket by now, and we still don't. This year could have been the year, but we could not get it over the line, and we lost in a penalty shootout to the best team in Europe, who everyone said was going to batter us and bruise us and, 3-0 this, 4-0 that. When you saw how they were putting goals past Bayern Munich, another European giant, people thought, oh, Arsenal has no chance. But again, styles make fights. Styles make fights is the expression and is the saying. And, the way Bayern tried to open up and go against PSG, they got found out because you can't be naive. You can't be all out attack against a side like PSG. Though, if you give them spaces to exploit, if you give them, room to maneuver and operate, they'll hurt you. Because they're quick with, their 1-2 passages of play, the triangles, the movement, very quick. And we deny them the space for the 120 minutes or most of the 120 minutes in that Champions League final. We denied them the space that they like to play in and operate in. And rival fans and people who hate on Arsenal say, "Oh, you guys didn't go and attack. Why didn't you guys attack them?" Well, why would we attack them? You see what happens to teams that try and attack PSG, right? Chelsea got slapped, I think 8-2 on aggregate. Liverpool lost without scoring a goal to PSG, I think, over the two legs earlier in the knockout rounds. Bayern Munich got five, put past them. If you try and be naive and go out and try and go and quote unquote play against PSG, you don't want to do that. You don't want to go blow for blow with PSG. They will hurt you. So you have to find another way. And people may not have liked it and like how we play, but it's the best defense going up against the best attack. That's what it was in that Champions League final. They have the best attack, as we know, and we have the best defense probably in the world. So styles make fights, and we have to approach it to our strengths. And our strengths was leaning and relying on our defense, denying them the spaces, like I said, going into a mid to low block. And now we maybe did that a little bit too early on in the game because maybe also the goal came at the worst time, which maybe sound weird to say, but we scored early in the game. So you still have 90% of that game to see it through and hang on to a lead, which is dangerous to do at times. But we almost did it. They didn't even score an open play. They didn't even have too many clear-cut chances in open play. Their one goal in, the 120 minutes came from a penalty, which was cl a clumsy challenge by a right back who isn't even actually a right back, and on a different day wouldn't have been on the pitch because he's our third choice right back at the moment. Because our first two, especially our starting right back, who is world class, and Yuri and Timber was coming back from injury. So again, we did the best that we could with what we had available on the day. Yes, there were a couple of mistakes. Um, but before we get into that, it's just a case of, the people out there who were expecting us to go out and attack PSG. Well, like I said, you can't. If you watched any of the other rounds earlier on in the Champions League competition, you would know that that's not the way to get at PSG. You cannot go blow for blow with them and go all out attack and be naive defensively because you'll just get found out. And we do not have the attack to compete with PSG's attack. We just simply don't. That's just the reality of the situation, which we know we need to address in the summer, which I hope we better address in the summer if we want to be back on this stage. But yeah, there was just no way we can be that naive against them. So leaning on our strengths, I don't care what anyone says that, it's football. We have to win by how we know best and what we know best. It's not about entertaining the neutrals or the haters or the rivals. It's about getting it done effectively for us. And how we've got things done this season has led to us, for the most part, being Premier League champions in our way, in a more defensive, more resolute, more conservative way. We are Premier League champions, right? So we obviously knew, and Arteta knows now, and he can say that he knows how to get it done and get it over the line in a big competition. Now in the Champions League, right, we were penalty shootouts away from being crowned champions of Europe. So we're close, but we know what we're just short, right? We know that we are just short, and I think it's quite clear now. We need to improve in the attacking areas to take it to the next step to then become the champions of Europe. It's as simple as that. And so in this final, right, as I alluded to, we did the best we could with what we had available, and our defensive structure was good, was decent for the most part. Because, like I said, we limited them. We limited them to a lot of the clear-cut chances and the battering that people were expecting. We really did. We really limited them. I think our center backs were brilliant. I think Hincapié was brilliant, and I think Declan Rice in front of him was brilliant. Even Miles Lewis-Skelly was good in midfield as well. He had a couple chances to get on some driving runs and drive through midfield and get on the ball and release some pressure for us. He did that on a couple of occasions, and also defensively a couple of times. He bailed us out. He was switched on as well. I believe he got a in the second half. He got a block on and Kvaratskhelia shot. He got a block on it. I think that hit the outside of the post and led to a corner. So the structure defensively, because one thing, we don't just defend with our back four. We defend as an 11. We defend as a unit. And again, we were switched on that way. The game plan almost worked. But the couple big mistakes for me were, again, I think, Timber could have been brought on a little bit earlier, or perhaps Timber could have even started the game. Instead of bringing on Timber for the last, quarter of the game to see it out, why not? If Timber is if he's on the bench, you assume he's healthy, right? Why not start him and get as much out of him as possible? Because as we saw, Kvaratskhelia couldn't last the whole 90. Even Dembele didn't last the whole 90. These were players that were taking off. Um, so to start as strong as possible, why not start Timber? It's a Champions League final. If he's fit enough for the bench, start him. We're trying to win the biggest club competition in the world. So why not start a Timber? And then if you have to take him off, if he's blowing, if he's fatigued, if he's tired, take him off in the, I don't know, 50th, 60th minute or whatever the case may be. But you start with him. You start with him in a Champions League final. You start with your best team, your strongest team. And if you have to change it up, so be it, right? But Timber coming on when he did, it was a little bit too little, too late, right? Um, so even if you don't start him, you bring him on a little bit earlier than you actually did. In hindsight, I know, yes, hindsight is a wonderful thing, but we elected not to bring him on until a little bit later, and it cost us because Mascara makes the mistake that he does. And again, you can see what I think once the second half even starts, you need to start considering making that change. I would have even, made that if you weren't going to start Timber, make that change at halftime. We're under the cosh. PSG is going to have majority of the ball, and they're going to find their spaces or try and find ways to hurt us, which did. They did. Obviously, in the end, they were clever enough. Kvaratskhelia was clever enough to draw the foul. Um, I think if Timber's on the pitch, he doesn't make that clumsy challenge that Mascara makes. And again, I can only fault Mascara so much because Mascara is center back playing at right back against, one of the best, if not the best left winger on form in the world at the moment in Kvaratskhelia. So even at halftime, you think maybe get Timber on the pitch if we really want to see out this 1-0 win, or even just another dynamic of a player who can relieve some pressure because we know Timber can get on the ball. Mascara's not a player who can, keep the ball or beat a press, break lines to drive forward. Timber can do that. Timber and Timber will do that. Timber will relieve pressure for us because he is he's decent on the ball, more than decent on the ball. Is Timber. He's good on the ball. He can get forward. He can carry the ball a little bit. He can draw fouls. He can hold it up for us. So, you know, we lost that, especially when Calafiori wasn't playing on the other side. We had played with Nkapie on the other side, who's another out and out defender. So when you're playing with fullbacks to start the game, like Mascara and Nkapie, who are fullbacks who, they're not going to be able to play and get up the pitch for us and get us up the pitch and make combination plays like Timber and Calafiori. So you lose something there um, with those two fullback profiles. And so again, Timber not coming on earlier, especially Mascara was booked, and again, the referee was suspect throughout the game, right? But Mascara was even booked before the penalty. He was booked early on by a suspect referee who couldn't wait to get the yellow card out and booked Mascara within seconds. I don't even think he gave him a fair enough chance to get the throw in. Didn't even warn him. The first sight of Mascara, taking what he deemed was a long time on the throw in, he books him. So at that point, Mascara's playing on a yellow card for a good amount of time up until he got from the time he got booked up until he went off. It's quite a long period of time. I think about 10, 15 minutes, maybe more than that actually. Playing on a yellow card against the best left winger in the world, it's risky, right? So I think that Timber change, if the first mistake is that he didn't start, the second for me was that he could have come on a little bit earlier when it looked like we were under the ropes and Mascara was booked and treading water. Again, hindsight is a wonderful thing, but you have to analyze it for what you see, and that's something that we could have done differently there. And I think Arteta would do something different there next time, to be honest with you, if he could run back that situation. Um, so yeah, if Timber starts that final, it's again, we're also unfortunate in the sense that he hasn't been fit all this time. If Timber was fit all this time, Timber would have started. Right? If Timber hadn't missed 2 months of football, 2.5 months of football, he would have started. And at that point, that was the only weakness in our back line, which was Mascara at right back. If Timber starts that final, I think it's different. I think we could see out maybe a 1-0 win or hold out defending the way we were if Timber starts. So it's very unfortunate. And this is why, we titled this video the Arsenal's Champions League curse because man, like we can't catch a break. Champions League final, you want your team fully fit going up against the best team in Europe. And they pretty much had their best 11 out there, right? Their injured players recovered in time, Dembele, Hakimi, and here we are, with injuries costing us again, and I say injuries, but it was one key injury in a key area of the pitch where we needed our best defense out there, and we needed our best players out there to have a chance against the best team in Europe in PSG. So that's the fine margins that cost us, I think, in that sense. In the penalty shootout now, obviously, so the penalty shootout is difficult because I always say as well, penalties in penalty shootouts is it's not necessarily about ability or technical ability anymore. It's about who's confident and wants to take one. Because in pressure situations, we saw with Eze's miss. Eze is one of the most technical players we have on the pitch in terms of his ball striking ability, etc. But I think he missed his penalty based on pure nerves and pure pressure of the occasion, right? And so sometimes if a player has technical quality or an attacking player, you trust on the ball that can score, can, again, who is just good technically on the ball. If they're not confident in taking a penalty, if they don't want to take a penalty because of nerves and pressure, You can't force them at that point, right? And at that point, it comes down to, again, penalties for me is all about confidence and who wants to take one, who can handle the occasion, who can handle the moment. Because like anything in life, everything, everything is mental, right? It's all about it's what's in your head. If you have belief in yourself, belief and confidence is such a powerful thing. Don't underestimate the power of the mind and what confidence, the confident mentality can do for anybody in any walk of life. If you have talent, but you are not confident, right, in taking that penalty in that moment in a Champions League final in front of the PSG fans behind the goal there, right? If you don't believe in yourself in that moment, then what are you doing taking a penalty? If you believe you are going to miss, why would you take the penalty, right? It's it's a tough call to make, but again, it's a call that needs to be made based on, as a manager, you have to understand that and be brave and say, hey, okay, if you, my striker, don't want to take a penalty, but you, my defender, our goalkeeper, are confident to take a penalty, then, the confident player, regardless of position, should step up to take that penalty. Why not? That being said, I am questioning the likes of, your Zubimendis and your Nani Madueke's. Like I do not fault Gabriel for missing the penalty. Of course I don't, right? Because, you know, he's been a warrior for us. We wouldn't be where we are without him. We wouldn't be lifting Premier Leagues without Gabriel. We wouldn't be in a Champions League final without Gabriel. Firmly believe that. And so him missing the penalty, you know, it can happen. It happened to John Terry. He's a world-class defender or was a world-class defender. It happens to the best of players. But he, as a center back, shouldn't even be in that position because again, you're looking at whilst I said, it's all about confidence and who feels confident on the day to take a penalty, you have to question the mentality then of your more attacking players. Your more your goal scorers or your more forward-thinking players and your Zubimendis with technical quality or Noni Madueke, an out-and-out forward. Why is Gabriel taking a penalty over you guys? Where's the mentality? Zubimendi is a Euros winner, came on in the Euro final against England and played well. And so you've played in finals and you've played in big games, Zubimendi, and you have technical quality. Why are you not stepping up in that moment to take a penalty? What do you, you're fear, you're afraid, sorry, you're timid. Like again, the Spanish international Zubimendi, I was quite disappointed that he, for one reason or another, again, we don't know. I don't have the inside scoop, but we're going based on what we see. The first five kickers for in a penalty shootout are crucial, and Zubimendi was not one of them. And so I'm questioning why. As a player of his profile, stature, quality, experience, why were you not in that situation instead of a Gabriel? And as a manager, again, you can behind the scenes, question or even in your head think, why are you not stepping up to take a penalty? Gabriel raises his hand confidently. Okay, well, Gabriel, you're up. You take it. If you feel it, if you're confident, it's more important than a player who has technically more quality, better quality on the football in Zubimendi than a Gabriel, or maybe better ball striking ability than a Gabriel. But if Zubimendi is not confident in taking it, you can't force the guy to take it because you want to give yourself the best chance of winning. If he thinks he's going to miss, even though he's more talented and a better technical footballer than Gabriel, why would you force him to take it still? You know what I mean? It's one of those ones. But yeah, the ultimate issue is here that yeah, Gabriel being our fifth penalty taker, and again, I digress a little bit, but back to Eze. Eze would have been out of the players who were left on the pitch. Eze would have been one of the people that you look at first and say, "Yep, your technical quality, your ball striking ability, you know where to put, you know how to put the ball in the back of the net." Gabriel scores goals, but he scores goals with his head more times, not his feet, right? You expect guys who have technical footballing ability in your Eze's and even Supermendi's to convert. Now, maybe Eze was confident as he was, raising his hand or volunteering or whatever the case may be to take the penalty, but maybe once he got in that moment on the spot from 12 yards out, the pressure maybe got to him, you know, um, the occasion got to him. He's usually a confident lad who backs himself, Eze, but yeah, maybe just in that moment, it just wasn't to be. And again, it made me, here's the other side of the coin. That scenario may not necessarily have been down to confidence for Eze. It may have just been you just missed on the day, right? You just missed on that in that occasion. You got your technique wrong. You got your setup all wrong. Maybe he was confident throughout. Who knows? But from what we saw on the outside looking in, that looked like a man who was under pressure in that moment, and he missed mainly down to pressure because he's taken penalties like that before. I hate those kind of run-ups, those slow jogs, those slow build-up run-ups. I don't like those as penalties, but whatever gets the job done for these players, and he's gotten the job done, and he's converted using that technique many times before, um, and scored from those situations many times before with that similar sort of run-up. And this in this occasion, it didn't work. And so, yeah, it's again with him, you that's somebody you usually back to score, and it just didn't happen for him on the day. We had penalty takers who we've seen score penalties for Arsenal in the past, who were off the pitch at the time. Saka, who I think was rightfully hooked during the game because he was not playing well. Odegaard, was also not on the pitch at the time. Kai Havertz, and even Trossard. I would have backed Trossard to take a penalty and score a penalty. So did we not prepare for that situation as well? Like I said, whilst the likes of Saka had to come off, there were other players there that, everyone, like I said, I don't know, those four players that I mentioned would have probably been within my five players to take a PK, right? Havertz, Trossard, Odegaard, Saka. Um, you would have wanted one or two of them on the pitch at the time. But with the players that we had left on the pitch, it didn't ever really seem, or you didn't feel confident that, we could have won a penalty shootout with Madueke on the pitch, with Hincapié. I wouldn't have trusted him if the penalties extended beyond the five players. Would I have trusted Hincapié to score a penalty? Not really. Martinelli did well to convert his. Who else is out there? Yeah, there was just a couple other players that we had on the bench at the time that would usually take penalties for us. Even Mikel Marino, I think I would have backed him to take a penalty if he was on the pitch. And that's another one where I think he should I would have found a way to get Mikel Marino on the pitch. Controversially, I actually trust Mikel Marino. I would have trusted to bring him on more than an Eze. That may be an unpopular opinion, but I would have, as that last sub, I would have trusted Mikel Marino. I would have wanted to bring Mikel Marino on more than an Eze in that moment. Eze is not great off the bench. It's kind of like either you start Eze or you don't. He's not great off the bench more often than not. We've seen this season Eze. It takes him a while to get into the game, etc. But Mikel Marino, you would have felt his experience would have been useful in this game. His technical quality, to get on the ball and help, be that transition link between attack and defense. He pops up in big moments for goals. I think I would have trusted him, Mikel Merino, to take a penalty. Again, Spanish international footballer, good technical ability, experience, right? He's also a Euros winner as well. Mikel Merino has moments, and I think he could have came on. And I think that game states, right? Styles make fights, all that stuff that I just mentioned. That we love Eze. I love Eze, of course. But I think in that moment, at that time of the game, I think Mikel Merino could have come off the bench, and helped us in some capacity, and definitely helped us in the shootout. Again, hindsight's a wonderful thing. It's easy to be wise after the event, but you have to just look at certain things that you think could have gone differently for us and what went wrong. And so, anyways, those, yeah. And you know what's interesting? I think if Gabriel had converted his penalty, um, as the fifth kicker, I think we would have gone on to potentially. I mean, again, it's still 50-50, but I felt confident that if Gabriel had scored his penalty and it extended beyond the five players each, I think we then would have had a chance of really winning it, to be honest with you, because there were a couple players who didn't step up, like I've mentioned, who I think have more technical quality than Gabriel that I've seen in the past, convert penalties. I'm including other defenders, Saliba, Timber. They're very, good technical footballers. And I think if you asked me beforehand between out of everyone in our back four, who would you have trusted to take a penalty? I would have said Saliba and I would have said Timber before Gabriel. Um, Again, Zubimendi as well. I'm not sure who they would have had next to take the penalties, but Dembele wasn't on the pitch, Vitinha wasn't on the pitch, and Kvaratskhelia weren't on the pitch at the time. So if it extended beyond the five players for each team, I fancied us still, even with the fact that we didn't have some of our better PK takers out there. I still kind of fancied us, and I think they would have missed that at some point too, depending on who would have taken it next. We didn't capitalize obviously on the fact that, like I said, Dembele and Kvaratskhelia were both taken off um, in the gameplay. We should have capitalized on that because you would think that our bench was deeper and better than what they have a brilliant starting 11, but once they get into their bench, yeah, they have a couple good players, but I think we had just a little bit more depth in our bench. So it's a shame we didn't capitalize on that. It really is a shame. Some suspect refereeing. Again, the penalty. um, then or the non-penalty call on Madueke. I think I can understand why he didn't call it, and it's not a clear and obvious error to me to overturn it. A lot of people think it was a clear penalty. I don't think it was as clear as a lot of people made out. Um, if he gave it, I think you can overturn it, but because he didn't give it, I don't think you can overturn it the same way. I don't think it was a clear and obvious error. But the referee was definitely a bit suspect in that final, especially in the second half. Um, obviously right at the end of the first half, we saw him deny Saka the corner kick delivery. He blew right at, I think it was 66 minutes because there was 6 minutes added for extra time at the end of that first half, and I think he blew on 6 minutes and 19 seconds. So as Saka was getting ready to take it, I think the referee just got fed up. For some reason, I think now the media attention and the publicity that Arsenal get when it comes to dark arts and taking long on set pieces and again drawing, trying to draw cheap fouls and this and that, like just the general dark arts around Arsenal Football Club this season that's been heightened for whatever reason. I think the referee was aware of that and may have been told that or warned by whoever that this is Arsenal Football Club and this is how they play in the dark arts and this and that. And I think as that game wore on, especially into the second half, I think the referee tried to be the man in the spotlight and stop Arsenal and try and police Arsenal from the dark arts, quote unquote. But the thing is, we weren't really abusing the dark arts, I don't think, to the point where the referee needed to make it about him. I think, like I said, denying Saka that corner kick, you rarely ever see that. It was right on 6 minutes. Yes, there were a few seconds over the 60 minutes, the 6 minutes, sorry. But usually, the referee will allow for the corner kick to be delivered, especially when it's literally right on the brink of happening, right? That corner kick was ready to be taken. It's not like Saka had to walk over with the ball. Saka was already in the quadrant, getting ready to wind up and deliver the corner on his left foot, and the referee just decided to blow up. It's the strangest thing. So that I think, in his mind, what he may have thought was a delay of us taking our time and then booking Mascara shortly after the restart in the second half for not even really an extended period of delay. I don't think Mascara took that long at all. And then just not giving us fouls, but giving them all the fouls. Like it stopped our momentum. I felt it stopped our momentum. Whilst, even the Nani Madueke thing, he didn't call it a penalty at the time. Um, Yeah, he didn't call that a penalty. And again, I can see why he didn't call it a penalty. Wasn't a clear and obvious error, but just booking Declan Rice and Mikel Arteta afterwards, they both got yellow cards for their protest. Declan Rice is captain. Why can he not speak to the referee and say, "Hey, can you review that?" You know what I mean? Like the referee just, yeah, as that game wore on, he just gave me bad vibes, and I'm not one. I don't want to call corruption and things like that, but it did really seem suspect to me, the referee, and for whatever reason, it did sort of look like he was having the as they say, um, with Arsenal. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know what his beef was with us as that game wore on. But yeah, just super suspect indeed. And yeah, again, we're denied that Champions League crown after both in 2006 and 2026 going up 1-0 in both those games and losing in the end. It's painful, man. It was really painful on the day. It still is painful. But look, we're champions of England. We're the Premier League champions. We got that one over the line. And I have no doubt that this team and this players and this group will go again. Because you saw even at the parade, the vibes, right, with how involved everybody is, from the director and Andrea Berta to the owner and Josh Kroenke, lapping up all the parties and the vibes and the atmospheres of the parade and engaging with the fans. Obviously, Mikel Arteta, the players, everybody is so hungry and invested in this football club and winning. And I think we will go again. And the Champions League is the one I think next, similar to Man City, where they had to get the domestic cups and the Premier Leagues and so on. And then the next step was the Champions League. I think that's where we're at too in this era and this evolution of Arsenal Football Club. This is a new era from the Arsene Wenger years, the latter Wenger of Arsene Wenger, the banter era, the Unai Emery banter era. This is a new era of dominance for Arsenal Football Club. We need to be building a dynasty. We have a team and players who are in their prime or entering their prime, young group of players who are on long-term contracts. Fresh, hungry, ready to go. The mentality of them that's been instilled to them by the manager is one of winning, a winning culture. I truly think we're back, and again, I think Champions League has to be next. I want that as early as next season, man, because we have to go again. Two Champions League finals losses, um, '06 and then 26. After going 1-0 up in both and losing both is painful. We have to break this curse. We have to get this duck. off our back. And we did it with the Premier League, right? So the players showed they have the mentality to deal with that pressure of going long spells without getting, the major silverware. To be the first group of players to win the Premier League after 22 years is not easy, right? After you have all the bottle tags and you hear all the media narratives around Arsenal second again, ole ole, bridesmaid, and all that. These players got over the line in that. So I have no doubt they can do it with the Champions League, right? With the group of players, the manager, the ownership, the director, everybody who's invested and involved and attached to what's going on. We're gonna go again, and it's got to be over the if not next year, the next couple of years. But I want it as early as next year. We have to go again. Since Arteta brought us back into the Champions League, it's been quarterfinals, semifinals, now finals. Next year, next year we need to go that one step further and get over the line in this competition in Europe. And I believe we can do it. We just have to, get behind the boys in the club, trust what they're doing because right now we have a lot of stability in the club and go again. So listen, folks, that's been me and my dissection of the Champions League final. We will break it down and go into a little bit further in the episode recording that we're gonna do with the rest of the boys, Laurent and Murdad, in our usual, standard episodes. So stay tuned. It's gonna be interesting. We're gonna hear Laurent's perspective as a rival fan, as a hater, as a Chelsea fan. And we're gonna hear from Murdad, who's gonna have a similar experience. He was out in London as well. So stay locked in with us. Stay locked in and wait for that episode that's gonna drop within the next 24 hours as well. With the three of us, an updated episode. We're at 100 and something, 110, 111, episode 110 or 11. So listen, we're back from London. We're moving thick and fast with the content. Sorry if my nose has been a little bit congested and nasally as well. It's been we got a little bit sick and a little bit of hay fever and allergies out in London. So that's how we had a good time as well though, right? Because when the voice is sounding, horsey and dodgy and the nose is all congested and whatnot, you know it was good over there in London. So up the Arsenal people. We'll be back next season. We're looking for more success, more trophies, and hopefully that Champions League that we desperately crave now. So like and subscribe. As I always say, hype the video. And yeah, man, it's been CJ from the Gunners Corner, and we'll keep it locked. We'll see you guys on the next one. We're out. Bye bye.